Life doesn't hand out guarantees, no matter how hard you work or how much potential you have. That's one of the hardest truths people have to face. You can train, prepare, and do everything right and still get knocked down, still lose, still face setbacks that seem unfair. But what separates the ones who rise from the ones who fall isn't talent. It's not luck. It's mindset. It's effort. The problem is too many people believe that just because they want something badly, life is supposed to cooperate. But that's not how it works. Life doesn't owe you success just because you showed up. Life doesn't owe you results just because you're a good person. Life is going to make you earn it over and over again. And sometimes you'll do everything right and still come up short. That's where most people fold. That's where the excuses creep in. But the truth is, even in those moments, especially in those moments, you still owe life your best. That's what makes this mindset so powerful. It's not about what you think you deserve. It's about what you're willing to give. Even when nothing is guaranteed in return, when you wake up every day and give everything you have, not because of what you're going to get, but because of who you are, that's a different kind of strength. That's where character is built. And that's the foundation for anything great. Too often we look for fairness. We wait for the conditions to be right, for things to feel easier, for the path to clear up. But life doesn't work that way. Life moves. Life challenges. Life throws punches. And in those moments, effort becomes your only currency. You may not control what happens to you, but you always control how you respond. You control your work ethic. You control your attitude. You control whether or not you show up, give your all, and keep fighting. That's where growth lies. That's where greatness lies. When you stop expecting life to hand you something just because you showed up, and you start approaching every day as an opportunity to earn it, you take back control. You realize that giving your best effort isn't optional. It's your responsibility. And when that becomes your mindset, when that becomes your standard, everything begins to shift. You stop focusing on outcomes and start focusing on the work. You stop being attached to results and start being committed to the process. And that's when doors start opening, not because life suddenly got easier, but because you got stronger. You got more consistent, more resilient, more relentless. And none of that comes from ease. It comes from the choice to give your best, even when it would be easier not to. Especially when it would be easier not to. And that choice, that willingness to show up, to push forward, to grind when no one's watching, that's what separates the average from the extraordinary. It's not the highlight reels. It's not the wins. It's the silent battles, the unseen effort, the daily decision to honor the opportunity in front of you, no matter how small, no matter how hard. Because that's how life is built. One decision at a time, one effort at a time, one moment at a time. Most people wait for the perfect moment. They wait for the right resources, the ideal timing, or the feeling of motivation to strike before they move. But the truth is, that moment rarely comes. Conditions are almost never perfect. Life is messy. Plans change. People let you down. The road gets hard. And if you're waiting for everything to line up before you give maximum effort, you're going to be waiting a long time. What separates the people who succeed is that they don't need the stars to align to give their all. They don't need the crowd. They don't need the spotlight. They just need the opportunity to show up and put in the work. That's the mindset that wins. That's the mindset that builds something real. Effort is the great equalizer. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what your background is or how much talent you were born with. What matters is what you do with what you've got. Every single person has the ability to give perfect effort, even in imperfect situations. The scoreboard might not always reflect it. The results might not always come when you want them to, but that's not the point. The point is to show up and be the kind of person who gives everything regardless of how you feel, regardless of what you get in return. Perfect effort doesn't mean everything's going to go your way. It doesn't mean you won't fall short. What it means is that when you look back, you can say with confidence, I left nothing on the table. That's where growth comes from. That's where you build character. And character isn't built when things are easy. It's built when you're tired, when you're frustrated, when nothing seems to be working, but you still give your best. That's what transforms people. That's what shifts your life in the direction of purpose, progress, and power. There's a difference between people who dabble and people who are committed. Dabblers wait for convenience. Committed people build consistency, and consistency doesn't happen by chance. It happens by choosing effort over excuses, over and over, day after day, because effort is something you can control. Life will throw 1,000 things at you that are outside your control, but how hard you work, how deeply you care, how far you're willing to go, that's yours. Nobody can take that from you. Nobody can out-effort you unless you let them. You don't have to be the most talented. You don't have to have the best resources. What you need is the decision that no matter what happens, you will show up fully focused, fired up. And when you do that, when effort becomes your standard, not when you feel like it, but always, you build something inside of you that doesn't fade. It doesn't break when pressure comes. It doesn't shrink in the face of setbacks. It becomes your foundation, something you can rely on, lean into, and grow from no matter what life throws at you. Adversity is often misunderstood. People think it's something that comes to ruin you, to stop your progress, to knock you off course. But adversity doesn't break you unless you let it. In reality, adversity reveals who you are. It pulls back the curtain on your character, your mindset, your commitment. When everything's going well, it's easy to talk about work ethic. It's easy to smile. It's easy to stay motivated. But when the lights go out, when the pressure hits, when you're in the storm, that's when the truth shows up. That's when your foundation gets exposed. There's something powerful about struggle because it removes the fluff. It takes away the image and exposes the core. And in that moment, you find out whether you've just been performing or whether you've actually been preparing. You find out whether your commitment is real or convenient. That's what adversity does. It strips away everything you pretend to be and shows you what's real, what's raw, what's built in the dark. I remember the moment my life changed. One hit, one play, 1 second, and everything I worked for was gone. My NFL dream, everything I had sacrificed for, it was taken away. And it would have been easy to say, this isn't fair. It would have been easy to sit in that hospital bed and stay bitter. But something shifted in me. I realized that the injury didn't define me. My response did. The adversity didn't destroy my story. It revealed it. It clarified it. Because when life strips away what you do, it forces you to confront who you are. And that's where true strength is found. See, anybody can smile when they're winning. Anybody can be positive when they're getting what they want. But who are you when nothing's working? Who are you when your plan falls apart? Do you keep showing up? Do you still give everything you've got when no one's clapping for you? Because that's when the foundation of your life is tested, not in the moments of celebration, but in the moments of silence, struggle, and solitude. Adversity gives you a gift that success can't. It teaches you what perseverance really means. It gives you empathy. It gives you grit. It teaches you to stop depending on outcomes and start depending on discipline. And when you develop that, you become dangerous, not because life won't still hit you, but because now you know how to get back up. You've been through the fire and you didn't fold. You didn't run. You stayed. You endured. And in doing that, you discovered something in yourself that comfort could never teach you. The hardest moments of your life don't define your limits. They define your depth. And every time you choose to keep going, every time you dig deeper instead of giving in, you strengthen the very part of you that will carry you through everything else. Every day, whether you realize it or not, someone is watching you. They're watching how you move, how you respond when things don't go your way, how you handle pressure, setbacks, and responsibility. It might be your younger sibling, a teammate, a student, a coworker, or even someone you've never had a full conversation with. But your actions, your attitude, your consistency, they're influencing people. That's why it matters how you carry yourself. That's why you can't afford to cut corners, slack off, or make excuses. Because somebody is learning how to navigate life by watching how you respond to yours. There's a standard that comes with leadership, and you don't have to have a title to be a leader. You lead by example. You lead through behavior. You lead by the standards you uphold, especially when no one's telling you what to do, especially when no one's clapping, especially when it's hard. That's where your impact is built, in the unseen moments. Because those moments shape how others see discipline, how they understand commitment, and how they learn what it really means to keep going when things get tough. People think influence comes from a stage, a microphone, a spotlight, but the real influence comes from your daily choices, the way you practice, the way you treat people, the way you hold yourself accountable, the way you talk when you're frustrated, the way you keep your word even when it's inconvenient. That's what people notice. That's what sticks with them. That's what shows them what it means to be reliable, to be trustworthy, to be someone who shows up with integrity, whether or not they feel like it. What most people miss is that they're making an impact long before they ever see it. Sometimes the person watching you won't tell you. They won't say they admire you. They won't say you're the reason they didn't give up. But make no mistake, they're being shaped by what you do. They're learning from your perseverance, your patience, your ability to get back up after a failure. You may not get credit. You may not get recognition, but you're planting seeds. You're laying a blueprint for how someone else might fight through their own storm later on. So you have a responsibility to the people who are watching and to the person you're becoming. You can't afford to be casual with your example. You can't afford to let excuses become your norm, because if you quit when it gets hard, you're not just quitting for you, you're giving someone else permission to do the same. But if you stand tall in adversity, if you work with excellence even when it's unnoticed, if you speak life into people when it's easier to complain, you raise the bar, you become the standard, you give someone else permission to rise too. That's leadership, that's impact, that's legacy. Commitment isn't something you can fake. It's not just about saying the right words or showing up for the easy moments. True commitment is about staying the course when the road gets tough, when the results aren't coming fast enough, and when the world is trying to convince you that you're not making progress. Too many people think that commitment is a one-time decision. They think that when they commit, they've done their part. But commitment is something that has to be renewed every day. It's a daily choice to stay true to your purpose, to keep pushing forward when it seems like there's no reason to. It's easy to commit when things are going well, when the wind is at your back, when everyone's cheering you on. But the real test of commitment comes when things aren't going according to plan, when life throws unexpected challenges your way, when you're faced with the kind of adversity that doesn't have an easy solution. That's when commitment is tested. The question isn't whether you're committed when everything's easy. The question is whether you're committed when it feels like nothing is working, when the effort doesn't match the result, and when the finish line feels a million miles away. In those moments, commitment is about finding a way to keep going, even when you don't feel like it. It's about showing up when you're tired, when you're frustrated, and when it seems easier to quit. Because the truth is, life doesn't owe you an easy path. Life doesn't promise you instant results. But what life does give you is an opportunity to be consistent, to stay disciplined, to keep your promises even when you don't feel like it. When you make a commitment, you're saying, this is what I'm choosing, no matter how hard it gets, no matter how long it takes. And the power of that commitment lies in its ability to withstand time and adversity. The people who succeed aren't necessarily the ones who are the smartest, the most talented, or the luckiest. They're the ones who stay in the game. They're the ones who don't quit when it gets hard. They're the ones who keep going when everything around them is telling them to stop. The commitment you make today sets the course for your future. It's the foundation that holds you up when the storms of life come, and it's what gives you the strength to push through when the outcome isn't guaranteed. But commitment isn't just about showing up. It's about showing up with the right mindset. It's about choosing to give your best effort even when it doesn't feel like enough. It's about trusting the process even when the process is difficult. And it's about having the courage to stay committed to the journey, not the destination. Because the truth is, the destination is just a marker. It's not the end. The journey, the work, the grit, and the grind, that's where the real growth happens. That's where you build resilience. That's where you develop the kind of character that carries you through not just one challenge, but all the challenges life throws at you. Excuses are easy to make. They come naturally, often without much thought. The moment things get tough, when setbacks hit, and when life doesn't go the way you want it to, it's tempting to look for a reason why you can't keep going. But excuses are a trap. They offer temporary relief, a way to avoid the hard work, but they don't solve anything. They don't move you forward. They just keep you stuck. The real challenge is to remove the excuses from your life entirely. And that doesn't mean ignoring reality or pretending that life doesn't get tough. It means making the choice to keep moving forward regardless of the obstacles. It means rejecting the idea that something outside of you can determine whether you succeed or fail. The truth is, most of the time, the only thing standing between you and success is your willingness to push past the excuses you give yourself. There's always a reason not to try, always a reason not to show up, always a reason to wait for a better time, a better opportunity, a better mood. But what happens when you do that? What happens when you wait for the perfect moment? You end up waiting forever. Life doesn't wait for you to feel ready. It doesn't wait for everything to line up. It moves whether you're ready or not. And those who succeed are the ones who learn to move with it. They don't let excuses decide their fate. They take responsibility for their choices, for their actions, and for their effort. They understand that the power to change their circumstances is always within them. When you stop making excuses, you start taking ownership. You stop blaming outside forces and start looking at what you can control. You begin to understand that the most important thing in any situation is your response to it. You may not control the challenges you face, but you control whether you give in to them or fight through them. Excuses are a form of self-sabotage. They make you feel justified in quitting, in slowing down, in taking the easy way out. But every time you make an excuse, you give away your power. You give up your chance to grow, to overcome and to prove to yourself what you're capable of. Every time you tell yourself you can't, you take away the opportunity to find out how far you can go. The truth is, we're all capable of much more than we realize. But that potential will never be unlocked if you keep making excuses to avoid the work, the struggle, and the discomfort that growth requires. Excuses may make you feel better in the moment, but they don't help you in the long run. They hold you back from becoming who you're meant to be. They stop you from reaching your true potential. When you commit to a life without excuses, you start to see the world differently. You stop looking at challenges as roadblocks and start seeing them as opportunities to prove yourself, to grow, and to get better. The moment you stop accepting excuses is the moment you take control of your life. You realize that nothing is impossible when you stop making excuses and start making moves. You begin to understand that your effort, your mindset, and your persistence are the true keys to success. It's not about waiting for the stars to align or for the right circumstances to appear. It's about doing the work, showing up every day, and putting in the effort regardless of the situation. When you eliminate excuses, you free yourself to take action. You free yourself to pursue your dreams without limits, to push through the obstacles, and to keep moving forward no matter how tough it gets. Because when you stop making excuses, you start making progress.